So this video is about how to revise and how to go about past paper questions and your DIL in a way that you're more likely to remember the information in the future, so you've got less to revise at the end, and ultimately make yourself more successful. So I'll talk about a few of these things further on, but as you can see, a range of the different activities, some are more successful than others, these two being fantastic ways to go about revision, and also the idea that having different stimuli can also help you retain information. Some people from GCSEs really don't know how to revise even if they're successful. And this can become a big challenge at A-level where the standard is that much more difficult. If you just read your notes and textbooks, only a mere 10% of that information is retained in the long term. It may not surprise you that one thing that leads to success is time and effort, as long as it's purposeful effort. So in Year 12, this is the number of hours a week recommended. So it's starting at 2 hours per subject all the way to 5 hours per subject at the end of the first year. And then carrying on from that at the start of the second year up to 10 hours per subject, leading up to the crunch time of exams. This might sound quite daunting, but with only having 3 subjects, you do have quite a lot of time built into the work into the week, which allows you to do that in college as well as at home. And these hours should be split up between questions set by your teacher, self-testing yourself on things like long answer questions, revising, and working on targets that you get from the assessments. So one of the things that's really important is learning the content. Only about 30% of the marks are awarded for just directly sort of regurgitating what you know. But to be able to get the vast majority of the marks, including sort of skills questions, practical questions, application questions, you have to have learnt the content in the first place. So it counts for over 75% of the marks available, just learning content, making sure you know what you're doing. So how to make the information stick so you don't have to keep doing the same things over and over again and it just doesn't seem to stay in your brain. How do you get over that? One of the best ways is self-testing. This is not just when you're revising, not just when you're doing flashcards, it's whatever you do. So it's vital that you retrieve memories when doing DIL and revision. So when you're doing past papers, don't have your folder open, don't look at your notes before you attempt a question. Think, you must think first. Retrieve the memories that you've got from class, from revising it before, then complete the booklet, then mark it, and then you can look at your notes once you've tested yourself first. The same with flashcards. Don't just look at the notes, give yourself time to think first. Question on one side of flashcard, answer on the other. Write out everything you know about it, talk it out loud. Tell someone else everything you know about that topic, link the ideas together. Don't look at the answers until you can't think of any other points, but do give yourself time to think first. So being scientists, we like evidence to support what we tell you, and there is evidence to show that this self-testing and recalling information from memory makes the memory stronger, so it makes it more easy to remember next time. So if you regularly test yourself throughout the 2 years of your course, then by the time you come to the exams at the end, you have to spend less time recalling content. It allows you to spend more time recapping and practicing the really hard stuff to get you the top grades possible. You can see from this graph that after you've learnt the content the first time, after a short space of time, within a month, you've nearly at the same level as if you've never learnt it in the first place. The more times you recap it, the more times you test yourself on it, the slower that the forgetting curve is, so you're more likely to remember the information again in the future. So as well as recapping topics several times over in a year, so that it makes it easier to remember the information, easier to recall and quicker to recall information, it's also really important that you do purposeful practice. One, because time isn't infinite, so you need to prioritise which topics you need to revise and recap. Once you prioritise those, then you can make sure you self-test, doing flashcards, or test yourself when doing past paper questions. The idea with purposeful practice, don't settle for the idea that you kind of get it, or mostly get it. You want to feel confident that you've mastered each topic. If you have flashcards, or when you're revising, this is a way that you can sort of prioritise which you need to revise and which you don't. So if it was flashcards, but it could be other things as well, the idea is the ones that you need to recap most often are in box 1, and when you get them right they go to box 2, and if you keep getting them right they go to box 5. So you don't have to recap the ones in box 5 very often. You might just do that, say, once a month, or once every 2 months, or once a half term. Whereas the ones in box 1 and 2 are perhaps recapped every week until you've mastered them, and then they'll make their way over to box 5. So it could be recap every week, recap every 2 weeks, recap every 3 weeks, recap every 4 weeks, recap every 5 weeks, something like that. But you have to make the system work for you. Another way you can sort of distribute practice and interleave your practice, your purposeful practice, is with the scheme of work that we gave at the start of the year, is you could just make an extra column. You could just annotate. So this table is on Moodle that you can get. You can just add an extra column, and just this is the topic that you are recapping that week. So topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, topic 4. So you've got 8 units within biology. So for example, by half term here, we finished topics 1 to 6, so units 1 to 6. So you've got a rota going on down here. As soon as you finish unit 6, then you do 1, 2, 3, etc. again. So that's another way that you can have a plan to cover each topic. Try to cover each topic at least 4 times throughout the year if you can. So then, in addition to any CEDA assessments you're revising for, or any DIL that you've been set, spend at least an hour a week on which unit you're just recapping, testing yourself on for that week. It's all very well good saying learn the content, recap the content, practice the content, test yourself on the content, but where do you get the information from the content from? So there are 4 main areas you can get the information for the content. The thing I like most is the long answer questions. Why I like them the best is because it covers keywords and how you can link those keywords and those ideas together in a sequence that makes sense, in a sequence that will get you marks, in a sequence that you can apply to different scenarios and make sure you've got all the information you need for it. The other great thing about the long answer questions is if you learn all of them in your booklet, so your knowledge booklets perfectly, then it also covers the vast majority of the content for that unit as well. And also questions like these could very easily come up again, and if you know it, you feel confident in exam, you know leaving exam, oh, I got 5 marks for that question. Other sources of information are the knowledge sheets. So not everything will be covered in the long answer questions. So knowledge sheets are good for keywords and diagrams that you might need to know, like biological molecular structure, that type of thing. So again, these are found at the beginning of your knowledge booklets. The long answer questions in the middle of your knowledge booklets. Also, you can hire a revision guide from the LRC. You can pay a deposit. Get your deposit back at the end of the year when you return the book in good condition. And don't forget your class notes. Your teachers know the content inside out. Your teachers know the types of questions you're going to get, and the lesson will be tailored to getting the most out of those types of things. So the next few slides are just different ways that you can actually learn the content. So first of all, flashcards. I think these are good for long answer questions. Some people would argue that, but I think the question on one side, answers on the other. Please try and make the answers have numbered points and each point a different colour. So different triggers help you to retrieve that information again in the future, and test yourself on them. We've been through how you can do that. So good for long answer questions, good for factual information. You could have spider diagrams for long answer questions, but then you'd have loads of them. You could have spider diagrams for, say, transport across membranes, or immunity, or nutrient cycles, or energy and ecosystems. So the larger chunks within each unit. Something I use these for university. I found really useful, and I added each line a different colour coming off from that, and then cover it up. And I used to chant out loud and walk around my room and reveal this section by section. I wasn't happy until I knew each thing perfectly. Another great way to revise is dual coding, diagrams. I love diagrams, visual trigger and can you remember the content. So you could do diagrams and have your either long answer question annotations or annotations around it. So it's a good way to help you learn. And also when you're testing yourself, you can draw it out again. Cornell notes, so you can make revision notes doing this, where you could have your long answer questions over here, and then in the margin you could even have extra questions linked to each of those long answer questions. So can you expand on it? You could even, during lessons, when making notes, have a wide margin set up at the side. You have your lesson notes down here, and then you can actually have revision questions down the side, so you can use your class notes for revision. If you're going to do that, it's easier to set up before you start making your lesson notes, so you could perhaps try it for the next topic. Another idea is chunking, perhaps to be able to help with learning so many different long answer questions, to chunk it down, to make it quicker to recap in the future. One concern I would have with this though is you've got to make sure that you can link the ideas together and that you include all the keywords. But it would speed up getting through all the long answer questions or more in a short space of time to test yourself quickly. So further instructions for chunking. So another thing that you could use is a revision app. So Quizlet, for example, or so you can make flashcards using quite a lot of these. The long answer questions are all available on Moodle, so you've got all the answers and mark points in a list that you can copy and paste into one of these apps, so you're not having to write them all out again, in a quick way that you can test yourself. These are good if you spend a lot of time in a bus, for example, so you can test yourself on the way home and into college. So you've learnt all the content, you've learnt all the long answer questions, you've learnt how to link ideas together and include all the key points and the key words. Where do you go from then? Practice, 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 lots and lots of questions, but different types of skill. And from your dirt, your feedback in lessons, from assessments, you should know which of these skills you find harder. Go onto Moodle, find packs of questions linked to those skills, linked to topics you find harder, and test yourself before you do the questions. So a large proportion of every single week, or even when you're recapping a topic again in the future, should be doing questions that you find difficult. Testing yourself on it first, then marking it, then using your notes to try and work out where you went wrong and so you fully understand it. So just a reminder, these are the two things that you should be doing the most. Practice doing lots of questions. Teaching others is a brilliant way to revise. This is what you should not be doing when you revise. Just relying on, yes, the YouTube videos are good for explaining it if you didn't get it, or for a quick recap. Reading, again, around the subject to help you understand it, but it's not going to help you remember it for an exam. You can't just rely on that. Or if you use these when revising for an assessment, don't expect to be able to remember that information by the end of the course. Another really important point is you will make lots of mistakes when testing yourself doing the questions. We're not expecting you when doing your DIL to get full marks in it, but what we'd rather you do is properly have a go first before using your notes and learn from your mistakes. This is the same from any assessment as well, and why feedback is so important. You have to learn from your mistakes. Well, perhaps not the most important thing, but it is really, really important. It's something that everybody should be recommending: sleep. You have to get enough sleep to enable your brain to process the information. You can't learn without sleep. Recommendations: 8 hours a day or a night.